Good morning, folks. I just got back from IMTS. We had an absolute incredible week. I think that's going to be like a 3 or 4 hour video recapping everything that we saw. But today I'm hanging out with my kids here at the shop. We're about to do some cleaning, and they wanted to introduce themselves.
Hello.
What's your name?
My name's William. My name is Jane.
What are you guys going to go do?
Clean.
Awesome. We appreciate it. Actually, on that note, we just purchased a walk-behind battery-powered floor cleaner. We bought the uLine model and put it up on Instagram kind of for fun. And the amount of DMs and messages that we got from folks was surpassed anything else we've ever posted. Kind of made me chuckle. So it's brand new to us, and so we are not ready to offer any sort of an opinion or review. And frankly, I wasn't even planning on doing that, but given that the interest was so much there, we will do that. What's clear is that our floors are so dirty that we're gonna have to use this thing in a pretty not fun way. Like we're gonna have to basically clean a small section and swap out the water. I mean, our floors aren't even that bad. I'll put in a little clip here of what we were testing a section on in this area right here, but that's kind of clean, if you will, and this is not. So it probably doesn't even show up on camera. But suffice it to say, a mop wasn't doing the trick anymore for this shop. Plus now we basically doubled our square footage with the training building, although then I get a lot less traffic. So having an automated solution was great, but obviously as an entrepreneur, writing a $3,000 check for a floor cleaner isn't always the most exciting thing, but we actually are pretty excited for this thing. So we'll do a proper video review when that is out. We do a fair amount of face mill cutting dry in the horizontal. And when you need to rotate the inserts, because we're cutting dry, the chips and dust and dirt tends to build up on the whole tool. So it makes your hand a mess when you touch the tool. And the dirt can build up inside the Torx screws, some of which are really small Torx screws for those inserts. And then that makes it difficult to unscrew them, or you can strip them out. The solution we found, leaving it in like this with the lid off, running it, works wonders on cleaning that tool. As a parent, it just warms your heart. They love coming and helping. They do ask if they can get paid, but I absolutely love it. We were also struggling with chips on our horizontal, and frankly, we still are. Problem is that we are cutting both steel and aluminum, which has driven our scrap price from ballpark 30 cents to 1 penny. They basically don't pay you for mixed stuff. The solution I'm about to show you doesn't actually solve it, but could be part of the solution. So we have a Gaylord box. We get these from free from our scrapyard. We have to put it on a wooden pallet so that we can lift the quite heavy full Gaylord box on and off this, which is a drain tub, which helps to make sure any of the residual coolant in the chips is draining out into that tub and not onto our floor. Obviously the problem is that we do lose some Z height stack up, so we end up having to sawzall the Gaylord boxes. Not a huge deal. But moving the Gaylord box in and out was quite difficult, and frustratingly, the spacing is actually wrong for a standard warehouse pallet jack, and I don't want to pull the forklift over every time, so we actually picked up a set of Amazon heavy-duty casters, and we just modified this, so it's actually fairly easy to just pull it out. Of course, I'm not going to be able to do it on camera with 2 hands pulling the box, but with one hand, you can pull this box, the Gaylord, out. That lets us move it over to, usually over to there, where we can swap it out with a forklift when it's full. The solution for chips management is a couple of different ideas, all of which sound great, but I don't still love because of a variety of complicating factors or real estate here around the chip bin. The coolest one would be an M code in the Akuma on the Fusion program. They would just rotate a thrust bearing with a little lazy Susan rotation that switches between aluminum and steel into smaller boxes. Honestly, that isn't that hard, not that complicated, should be reliable. Biggest drawback is, again, I'm either going to take up a ton of space over here, and obviously we have the VF3 right there, or reduce the size of the chip bin, which means I've got to swap them out more often. I've also thought about some sort of a pivot chute that could direct them into 2 different sides of something, or we looked at briquetting machines in IMTS. If it were, just to be blunt, if we could find a briquetting machine that was, say, 40 grand, it would be worth it. To explain, our annual scrap revenue is probably $10,000 right now, and frankly, we're growing, so that's a decent ROI, technically a 25% ROI. I would argue there's probably a bit more math into it than that, but I could justify 40. Most of the, and there are some out there that are priced, but the ones we were talking to we're double or 2.5 times that, which just a no right now for us. So don't have a better option. I also don't want to replace our conveyor. They make some conveyor options that can do sorting with magnets in there. So we'll keep brainstorming on that, or if you have any suggestions in the comments, would love to hear them. But I'm thinking simplicity is the best, which is to switch out the material, especially for those overnight unattended runs. And finally, I think this is the last kind of quality of life when it comes to cleaning and shop operations in this video, is we bought these pretty inexpensive mats. I'll put a link in the description, that we've started putting below any of our oil catch pans. We dump the oil into 5-gallon buckets for it to get recycled, but those catch pans just help keep the inevitable drips and so forth off of the floor. 2 projects that we were asked to be part of that I want to share more as a personal point of pride, but also a really cool example of what's happening in the online machining world and the community, and most importantly, for us, paying it forward. Number 1 was ProjectMFG. I've mentioned this on the podcast, I think probably on some other social stuff, but we were asked to be a judge for a competition that had a $100,000 prize for the top trade school who won this competition, and they filmed the finale in sort of a reality TV format at Wichita State University in Kansas. I was one of 3 judges evaluating these teams as they went through a number of machining parts, including 5-axis parts, and there was a welding component of it. But there are so many reasons I love this project. You're getting real industry involved. The Pentagon, the Department of Defense was involved I love this line, from a matter of long-term national security as it relates to ensuring we've got folks focused on manufacturing within the United States. I love that. Not really so much as a U.S. versus the rest of the world, but matter from a simply standpoint of we need to create jobs, we need to get interest in this field and arena and make sure we've got a workforce, not for tomorrow, but for 15 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. So that made me a very proud member of that community. The videos showing the finale of that are now out on YouTube. We'll also put a link in the description. I'll try to put a card here. So please watch that. And really, all I want you to do is spread the word. I want more folks to be aware. I mean, this is legitimate. This is a game-changing amount of money that they're awarding and making available, and honestly, phenomenal. The other one was the Anca Tool of the Year Tool Grinding Award. A little bit out of the left field for us because we're not tool grinders, but we were asked, I think because of our affiliation or friendship with the folks over at AB Tool, including Alfred Lyon, and we're all thinking of you, Alfred. Alfred's been going through some pretty tough stuff this year, but we had the chance to tour their facility a number of years back, and they've started using a lot of Anca grinders for their custom tooling, and we use them. Actually, we use them to make our Saunders Machine Works pallet. I might have one in the drawer here. Yeah, they're all in the machine right now, but it's a custom-sized woodruff cutter that allows us to come up and cut a counter bore from the back side of our part and put on backside chamfering. So Anca did this competition at IMTS this year, which really rewards folks in the tool grinding community who are putting forth ingenuity and so forth. We were happy to be a judge for that, but also just another really good example of companies, machine tool builders, trying to involve their community, their users in a very public way and reward those and pay it forward. And it was a lovely event. And thank you to everybody at Anca for their hospitality this week at IMTS. So what's going on at Saunders Machine Works? We almost bought a 36,000 capacity forklift. So we didn't. And I'm not sharing this to bring on criticism, but rather just as a little nugget of insight into what I wanted and ultimately walked away from. So we move machines, not a lot, but enough to where it's expensive and inconvenient to rent and to coordinate with riggers. Riggers are busier than ever. We've had some issues because we're having some major development in our area, which just makes riggers more expensive, busier, frankly, just less interested in doing small jobs. So I thought, man, I'd love to have a forklift that could lift most of our machines. And so there was one that came up for auction 17 miles from here. Very uncommon to see a forklift like this for sale, especially one that was so close. And a lot of things really went well. I was able to go see the auction preview. We were able to start the forklift up. We'll put in a picture of this, but this was a really large, kind of yard style forklift, like an outdoor forklift. It is not what you would really like, which is I call a VersaLift, but the forklifts they look more like a traditional forklift, but have usually telescoping back ends that can change the center of gravity with the counterweight. My thought was, hey, if we can have this, then we'd be able to unload machines as we need to and load them. One of those thoughts relates to the training center stuff, which I'll talk about here in a minute in the video. But if we wanted to work with a new builder that wanted to make, let's just say builder XYZ wanted to send us this machine for 9 months for our training side to help them run a training platform. We haven't done that, but I love that idea. I really do. But part of that is I can't spend $10,000 total to get the machine in and out. It just adds a lot of friction to that deal. And so like I said, everything went great on this forklift. I was able to see the individual at the auction who used to maintain it. He was there, like so often the case, just kind of checking out how that's a really sad story. 2 folks own this welding and fabrication company. I guess they both died, and the company kind of went into one of those terrible legal scenarios where it was in, probate or stuck, and just unfortunate. But great to be able to talk to the guy. He's like, yeah, I changed the power steering pump, and this is the condition. He bought it from a quarry and did this to it, so forth. So part of me was like, hey, this is great. I also coincidentally ran into one of our riggers there, who I know pretty well, and just said, hey, am I crazy? Like, this is what we're thinking, and frankly, it's been hard to hire you guys. And he said, no, but these, remember, it's not an indoor forklift. And he gave a great rule of thumb, which is this is an older forklift. I think it was in the late 1970s. You don't want to pay more than $1 per pound of lifting capacity. And so sure enough, though, it ended up selling for $31,000 plus, I believe it was an 18% bid premium. So that's a lot going to the auction house, which I think actually put it closer to 40 grand. Would have cost me $1,000 to ironically rig it here or have it low buoyed over here. But it barely would have fit through our doors to store it indoors. It was stored indoors at the prior owner, again, which is like, this is best case scenario for pieces of equipment like this at this price point and age. Normally these things are run down, stored outside, run hard, all that. So, but ultimately I just thought, John, this isn't the business you're in. I'd rather have a VersaLift, but I can't afford one. They're usually 6 figures. And I'm only sharing this because this is what life's like as an entrepreneur. I mean, I would, love to save the thousands of dollars more we spend per year for those situations. On the flip side, our most expensive rigging bill recently was the horizontal behind us. And while that was really expensive, the truth is that rigging wasn't just pulling it off the truck. That's not that hard. The rigging was the fact that the riggers brought probably 6 guys who spent 2 days just unboxing stuff, all the bolts, the containers, the scrap metal, the sheet metal, just lots and lots and lots of work. That's not the business that we're in, especially when we're busy. So I'll wrap it up there, other than to say it was an interesting thought, and I'm not against it. If we find a VersaLift in the future, I could see, kind of one of those, hey, bring that stuff in-house, have that ability, could be pretty sweet, especially now that we've got that training center building next door where we may have more machines around, and we've got a place to store that indoors. I forgot one quality of life thing that we love. This Okuma is a lot more peculiar than a lot of our Haas machines on various different fluids and oils that it needs. And now that we have 2 Okumas, they have slightly different requirements. It's frankly not fun to think which spindle fluid or whey oil or lube goes to what machine and what. So we did what I think is now quite obvious, which is that we printed out a picture of the oil container itself, and we wrote on the label what it goes for, but then on the fill container itself, we have taped a picture of it right here. And we did the same thing for the bigger ones. In this case, we have both a smaller, whatever that is, liter, and then the 5-gallon bucket. Go do that. Obviously, you don't have to do it for just oil. Anything like this where I don't necessarily want it in our ERP system, Lex, but I want to know what it looks like if I need to order more and which goes in where. And the other thing we're doing is we're trying to make sure that we tape. Let's see if I can put my money where my mouth is here. Yeah, so we're leaving, we just put a shipping window label on it right here. So if we need to order more, we've got a last copy of a packing slip or invoice or whatever, because we buy this stuff from, some of that we buy from MSC, some from McMaster, some we buy from, I think it was Petro Choice, like a kind of a chemical specialty company. So just one of those things that makes it easier when anybody here needs to do anything, whether it's fill up a machine or order more. We were able to bring Johhny5 back into this room. This used to be where we had a lot of the Tormach machines before we expanded into the training facility. So it is absolutely awesome to see Johhny5 every day when I'm walking between the office and the shop. Our main guy, Samuel, who was working on Johhny5 this summer, is now off at Purdue. Congrats to you, Samuel. So we're kind of looking for somebody right now to come help. Some of it's on the final mechanical side of it, but a lot of it's going to be implementing, I think, ROS, like robot operating system, in the software side of things and the power supply. Most of his joints already have the motors in them. Some will need added to it, but tying that all together. But the reason I brought that up was also because we have our conference room back. When we moved Johhny5 into the conference room, our company was in a very different place. We now have manager meetings twice a week, and we have a shop meeting on Friday, and it's really nice to now have that manager meeting in the conference room. We were having them in my office for a while because we can all sit around the table and we can meet. But the silly thing I wanted to add was we use a TV with I think it's a Fire Stick or one of those, computer USB sticks with a wireless keyboard. And I know this is hardly the tip of the century because most folks know about wireless keyboards, but if you're like me, 10 or 15 years ago, wireless keyboards were really expensive and the batteries didn't last. They're cheap, the batteries last forever, and having anybody be able to control whether we're looking at our websites or our Lex ERP system or current status of Shopify type stuff, really helpful to have those tools at our display when we're meeting twice a week. A shout out to Langmuir Systems. They had reached out to us earlier this year, asked if we would partner with them on their new MR1 CNC machine, and ended up, we made a lot of fixture plates and modified systems for that machine, one of our largest orders ever to date. We sent that all to Langmuir, and they're shipping them out with many of the initial machines. They are also continuing to make those products available on their website. We'll be selling them as well on the Saunders website, but really one of those nice milestones as an entrepreneur to partner with somebody and have so many folks recognize how helpful and useful the Modvice system is, especially on the machines like that where you have limited Z travel. The other exciting news is we've got two product-related announcements. One is that we are working on offering metric fixture plates. We actually can already make metric plates, and we've been doing so for custom jobs, but having them as an inventoried item, especially for the folks that want metric in the US or the rest of the world, but not just the fixture plates, the whole product offering, mod vices, and other accessories. So we are working on that. Hopefully we'll have some product announcements are ready to ship here wintertime. And the other one is a Saunders Machine Works 0-point system. So quick change style fixturing. More to come on that. If you want to sign up, link in the video description. We're looking for folks that have fixture plates that can help beta test those things. The other news is let's run next door to the training class building. That is a brand new Tormach 15L. We've already got the 8L, and this week at IMTS, got a handshake deal on buying a Haas, probably an ST20Y. I'm actually still debating the nuances of the size for that, but starting in 2023, we want to be offering a turning class here at Saunders Machine Works. So if you want to come and learn CNC turning, the Fusion 360 side of turning, and have hands-on experience on either Tormach or Haas lathes, we'll have a sign up here in the description. And similarly, we bought a UMC 500. So between that, and we're going to try to work with the folks at Penta Machine, formerly Pocket NC. They debuted a beta, very early beta of their new 5-axis machine. If you're familiar with the older Pocket NCs, they've been around for quite a few years. This is a huge step up. I actually think this is a really interesting machine for folks that need a small 5-axis machine, R&D labs, engineers, home users. Like I'm really rooting for them to see what they're able to do with this. We'd like to have one as a second 5-axis machine for folks that want to come here and have the chance to learn how to program and actually run 5-axis parts. So we're pretty passionate about training. We've got a class starting here in a few days. Obviously, we need to get a few things cleaned up in here, but it's really exciting to see this all come together. We appreciate everyone's support. It's been so much fun to see people now back at classes and at IMTS. We'll have that IMTS video edited up here pretty soon. Otherwise, folks, take care. See you soon.